This time he accepted, and the role of Captain Crane quickly became the definitive version of the character in the audience's eyes. With a calm, decisive demeanor and a warm smile, Hyson turned Crane into the ideal commander. Strong in the face of danger yet humane among his crew, he stayed with the role for all 4 seasons, a total of 110 episodes, and became the face of the entire franchise. Many later said that if Hyson hadn't refused the original film, perhaps he wouldn't have had the chance to shine for so long. 5. Modest budget, explosive revenue. Those who followed Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea when it was released in 1961 surely remember the surprise upon learning that the production budget was only $1.5 million. A modest number compared to science fiction blockbusters of that time. Fox Studios did not place high expectations, seeing it as an experimental project combining underwater adventure and doomsday themes. However, when the film was released, domestic revenue quickly soared to $7 million, nearly 5 times the cost. An unexpected success that even the studio didn't foresee. That explosion came from the story's appeal, the Seaview submarine embarking on a mission to save the world from the threat of the Van Allen belt catching fire, combined with solid performances from Walter Pidgeon, Peter Lorre, and the young cast. Audiences in the 1960s living under Cold War anxieties found in the film a mix of suspense and hope. It became a true sleeper hit. From a small project, Voyage gradually gained recognition as one of the most memorable early science fiction films. Thinking back today, that success reminds us that sometimes a good story told sincerely with a reasonable budget can still win over millions of viewers more than costly blockbusters. 4. Say was designed based on marine creatures. Owen Allen, later nicknamed the Master of Disaster, had a bold idea from the very design phase of the Seaview submarine to make the ship not just a vehicle, but like a living creature under the ocean. He spent time thoroughly studying manta rays, giant rays with wide, graceful wings, and predatory sharks with sharp, fierce lines. From there, Seaview was sketched with a flat body, a pointed nose like a shark's snout, and gently curved stabilizing fins like manta wings. That design was not intended for military engineering purposes, but to create a predatory feel, a hunter submarine that could glide swiftly through the ocean. When watching the film, audiences sensed that Seaview was not a lifeless machine, but a creature with a soul ready to face any danger. That nature-inspired idea made the submarine unique, completely different from real submarine designs of the time. 3. The 5M submarine model was as heavy as a real ship. One of the major elements contributing to the realism of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was the giant Seaview submarine model used for underwater scenes. This model was 5M long, weighing nearly like a real ship at small scale, meticulously crafted with details down to every pipe window and stabilizer. The large size was not for show, but to accurately simulate fluid dynamics, how water moved when the ship traveled. When dropped into Fox's giant filming tank, the water created ed's bubbles, a natural movement identical to a real submarine in the deep sea. Technicians had to adjust camera angles and water pumping speed for hours to make the scenes look convincing. At that time, CGI did not exist, so everything relied on physical models and real water. The result was that scenes of Seaview gliding through the ocean or rushing into danger looked so vivid that audiences forgot it was just a model. 2. Fox released 4 different posters to lure 4 different audience groups. To reach different target audiences, Fox Studios applied a marketing strategy rarely seen at the time, releasing 4 completely different poster versions for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Each poster was designed for a specific viewer group. Disaster for those who like doomsday films, sci-fi for science fiction fans, monster for audiences who love giant creatures, and romance for those seeking a bit of love amidst the action. They ran A/B testing in an analog way, hanging different posters at different theaters and monitoring ticket sales to see which version was most effective. The results showed that each poster attracted its own group, helping the film reach a wider audience than using a single unified image. That strategy, though simple, was very clever in an era without digital data or online advertising. 1. Fox's secret water tank became a golden resource for Hollywood. Behind most of the mesmerizing ocean scenes in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was not the real sea, but a giant secret water tank located within the Fox Studios compound. This tank, specially built for underwater films, had massive dimensions several meters deep with powerful water pumping and lighting systems to create light through water effects. Most of the scenes of Seaview diving deep divers exploring or facing danger were shot right in that tank using models and real actors submerged. After Voyage's success, the water tank became a golden resource for Hollywood. It was reused continuously for many other films and series by Irwin Allen, from Lost and Spacito: The Time Tunnel, and even many underwater adventure films of the 1960 ST-07S. That tank not only saved costs, but also allowed complete control of the filming environment from water temperature to flow. something that was hard to achieve when filming in the real ocean. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. You are there when the frogmen battle a mammoth squid. You are there when Barbara eats. When I was little, my mother often took me to watch Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea at the old cinema near our house. At first, I thought this was just another boring submarine movie like many others, but the very first moment when the theater lights gradually went out, the intense music sounded and the scene of the giant squid attacking the sea view ship appeared on the big screen, everything changed. I was strongly attracted and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea became my favorite movie, but the more I explored behind the scenes, the more I discovered strange details that I had absolutely no idea about when I was a child. Did you know that Peter Lorre was addicted to heavy medication to the point that he sometimes forgot all his lines right on the set? Or that Barbara Eden once nearly died because she was forced by the director to film a dangerous scene, and also the fact that the US government had to watch the film in advance because they were afraid the public would panic, and today we will uncover the secrets behind Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. 20. Peter Lorre was addicted to tranquilizers while filming. I remember the first time I watched Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I was impressed by the role played by Peter Lorre. The man who had once created haunting characters in Casablanca or the Maltese Falcon now appeared in a sailor uniform with deep anxious eyes inside the narrow submarine. But few people knew that behind the studio lights, Peter Lorre was struggling with an addiction to barbiturates, a very strong tranquilizer that many Hollywood stars at that time used to cope with pressure. Those pills helped him stay calm but also made him dull. There were takes where under the hot halogen lights he stood silently for a long time with blurry eyes forgetting all his lines even though he had rehearsed for hours. The set was cramped like a metal box, the air suffocating and hot making his claustrophobia even worse. Medication, declining health and the fear of confined spaces all blended into a gloomy mixture that many crew members still remembered clearly afterward. They said he often sat alone in a corner of the set with trembling hands trying to regain his composure before the cameras rolled. Only 2 years later in 1964, Peter Lorre passed away due to a sudden heart attack at the age of 59. Many people in the crew looked back and whispered that they had sensed it from those shooting days. A part of the price that Hollywood demanded from great talents when the glamour of the screen concealed silent pain. 19. Hollywood once forced female actors to sign private life control contracts. At that time, Hollywood was still a giant machine with unwritten rules, especially harsh toward female actors. Fox in the 50s to 60s, when signing contracts for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea or any other project, they were forced to accept morality clauses, long moral agreements that allowed the studio to intervene deeply into their private lives. Everything from romantic relationships and friends they met to personal photos taken outside working hours could be monitored. Tabloid newspapers like Confidential were always lurking, hunting scandals to sell papers. Rumors spread in the industry that if an indecent photo or an unapproved romance leaked out, the contract could be terminated within 24 hours without explanation. Many female actors later recounted that they had to be careful with every step, every smile in front of paparazzi lenses because just one small mistake could end their career. 18. A diver nearly died while filming the underwater scene in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. The most frequent scenes we saw were the sea and divers quietly swimming under the deep blue ocean. Back then, I was always drawn to the underwater footage that looked strangely realistic, as if truly exploring the ocean floor. But few people knew that behind that beauty were real risks the crew had to face. In 1961, underwater filming equipment was still very rudimentary. Heavy diving suits, long breathing tubes, and mechanical air valves that could easily jam. During one scene where a diver explored the seabed, the oxygen valve suddenly failed. He lacked air immediately. His body convulsed violently in the murky water of the giant tank at Fox. Screams were heard through the water. The entire crew panicked and jumped in to save him. Fortunately, they pulled him up just in time before suffocation. That incident nearly took a life, but Fox covered up the information to avoid labor authorities intervening and to keep the filming schedule on track. Divers at that time worked under dangerous conditions without modern safety systems like today. They accepted the risks to bring audiences the most vivid underwater images possible. 17. Water in the tank was too cold, causing Barbara Eden to suffer from hypothermia. Few people knew that behind the mesmerizing underwater scenes in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea were real moments of danger that Barbara Eden and the crew had to endure. The water in the giant tank at Fox Studios was not artificially heated as many imagined. They deliberately used real icy water from supply sources so the water would appear crystal clear and more realistic on Technicolor screens. Barbara Eden, then young and full of enthusiasm, recalled that the cold pierced her skin like needles, causing intense headaches as if her head was about to explode. She had to wear a thin diving suit, soaking for hours in such low temperatures that her body started to shiver uncontrollably. Her teeth chattered when she complained to director Win Allen. He just smiled and replied that it would make her look better on screen. There was no other choice. She clenched her teeth and endured trying to maintain a calm expression in front of the camera, even as her limbs went numb and her breath shortened. Many times after cut, she had to be pulled ashore by assistants wrapped in warm blankets and given hot water to cover. The result was mild hypothermia, but enough to leave her exhausted throughout the continuous shooting days. Barbara Eden made Ithro, and that scene remains one of the most beautiful images of the film. Beautiful, but paid for with silent shivering. 16. The submarine set smelled so bad it made actors vomit. To the audience, the Sea View submarine in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea always appeared mysterious, clean and modern, like a perfect machine gliding through the ocean. But in reality, the submarine set was a suffocating place so smelly that many actors felt nauseated and vomited. The set was built fully enclosed at the Fox studio with metal walls, tangled pipes, and halogen lights shining constantly. The blazing lights made the air-stifling actor sweat dripped onto the floor. The burnt rubber smell from insulation, the salty stench of artificial sea intermixed with sweat and breath in the enclosed space. All created an unbearable mixture like an old hospital blended with the stench of decaying fish. Without strong ventilation fans, the air stagnated, making many people turn away, covering their mouths. Some actors had to run outside during takes of vomit, wipe their faces, drink water, then return immediately. They endured it due to the tight schedule, but everyone remembered that feeling clearly: suffocating, hard to breathe, like being locked in a real metal box under the sea. That stench never appeared on screen, but it contributed to the authenticity and the anxious expressions of the actors. Real discomfort that made their performances more natural than ever. 15. Fox wanted to add a love triangle on the submarine. You may not know that Studio Fox once had a bold idea to increase commercial appeal for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Add a love triangle right inside the Sea View submarine. They imagined the male commanding officer, a strong, responsible man drawn into a complex relationship with a beautiful female secretary while his wife waited back on shore. The cramped space, looming danger, and doomsday pressure would create emotional tension, furtive glances, and reluctant closeness amid action scenes. That idea sounded attractive to the mass audience. A mix of romantic drama and science fiction popular at the time. But Irwin Allen, the director, firmly committed to his vision, flatly refused. He told the producers clearly, "This is a doomsday film, not a romance. We don't have time for cuddling when the world is on fire." He wanted to focus on science, on the threat from the Van Allen belt on the ship's survival journey, not let love dilute the gravity of the story. In the end, Fox gave in. No secret kisses, no jealousy drama. That decision made the film more serious, focusing on adventure and science rather than easy romance. 14. The US government screened the film first, fearing nuclear panic amid the tense atmosphere of the Cold War when the Cuban Missile Crisis had the whole US holding its breath. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea accidentally touched on a real fear, the idea that the Van Allen belt, the radiation belt surrounding Earth, could catch fire and burn up the atmosphere. The film's content was too close to contemporary nuclear anxieties. So before public release, several private test screenings were held for senior officials from the Department of Defense (DoD) and the Atomic Energy Commission (AEC). They sat in a closed screening room watching every scene of the Sea View heading into danger, burning in the sky and people panicking. The silence was heavy. After the screening, there was no official ban, but there were recommendations from the government to adjust some details to avoid further public panic. Especially as people were already afraid of nuclear bombs and war. Win Allen read the notes and simply shook his head. He refused to change anything, insisting that the film was fiction, not propaganda. In the end, the original version remained intact. That incident showed the power of cinema at that time, strong enough to make the government take notice, even if only with discreet concern. 13. Some cinemas in the UK required content warning signs. When Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was shown in the UK in the early 60s, some theaters did something quite unexpected. They added content warning signs at the entrance. Not because of violent gore or nudity, the usual concerns of censors, but due to the risk of ecological panic. The idea of the Van Allen belt catching fire in the film was too vivid, too convincing for audience of that era. When the radiation belt had only been discovered a few years earlier and was still a major mystery, many viewers after watching the film were genuinely worried. They sent letters to authorities, asked newspapers, even called radio stations, "Can the Van Allen belt really catch fire?" Is Earth about to be burned? British newspapers had to publish scientific explanations, reassuring that it was just a fictional scenario with no real basis. Some theaters, to avoid trouble from panicked or complaining audiences, decided to toss small warning signs. The film's content is fictional and does not reflect actual risk. That detail may sound strange today, but it shows how far-reaching the impact of Voyage was beyond the cinema. 12. The Sea-View submarine made audiences believe it was top-secret military technology. Many people, when watching Voyage to the bottom of the sea for the first time, were shocked by the design of the Sea-View submarine. Unlike any military submarine they had ever seen in newspapers or documentaries, instead of the straight rigid shape of naval engineering, the ship had soft curves, a pointed nose like a shark, and a flat wide body like manta ray wings. Many truly believed this was a secret prototype of the US Navy, a piece of top-secret technology being hidden from the public. They whispered in the theater, sent letters to the press asking, "Is the Sea-View real? Is the Navy testing something under the sea?" That design was not based on official technical blueprints, but inspired by sea creatures. Irwin Allen's idea to make the ship look like a living organism capable of gliding smoothly through the ocean. That confusion created a mysterious aura, making the film feel not only like science fiction, but also like a real espionage story. That design detail helped make Voyage unique, standing out from the many submarine films of that era. 11. The idea of the burning atmosphere made the scientific community uneasy. It's hard to believe that the core idea of Voyage to the bottom of the sea, the Van Allen belt catching fire and burning up the atmosphere, made the scientific community at the time restless. This radiation belt had just been discovered by James Van Allen in 1958, only 3 years before the film's release, and was still a big mystery to the public. When the film depicted it catching fire like a giant fire cloud, many viewers believed it and the media reported it widely. Physicists and engineers had to speak up in science magazines and on the radio. It can't happen. The radiation belt doesn't burn like gasoline. They explained in detail about plasma nature and magnetic fields, but the public was still abuzz. Van Allen did not change the script because it wanted to use science as the foundation for a fictional story. That controversy actually made the film stand out more, turning it into a hot topic beyond the theater. 10. Walter Pidgeon's return surprised everyone. Among the cast of Voyage to the bottom of the sea, the appearance of Walter Pidgeon was a big surprise to many. He had been amateur Hollywood star in the 1940s with Mrs. Miniva and How Green Was My Valley, then gradually withdrew from the screen to focus on theater. When Irwin Allen invited him to play Admiral Harriman Nelson, the stern commander of the Sea-View, many thought he would refuse, but Pidgeon accepted immediately. His return brought credibility and depth to the film. With a deep voice and dignified demeanor, he made the character trustworthy amid chaos. Older audiences were especially touched to see him on screen again, like meeting an old friend from wartime days. That role not only elevated Voyage, but also served as a reminder of the golden generation O factors, those willing to return for a good story. 9. The Arctic under ice scenes were based on real missions. There were details in Voyage to the bottom of the sea where I couldn't tell what was real and what was fiction. The scenes of the submarine moving under the Arctic ice were one example. On screen, it was just a few tense minutes. In real life, it was based on actual missions that the public almost never knew about. In the late 1950s, the US Navy quietly tested deploying submarines under the ice. These missions were not promoted, had no images and no explanations. People only heard vague rumors then forgot. Van Allen quickly grasped that feeling. He didn't copy the technique or try to recreate it accurately. He simply borrowed the curiosity. The feeling that something was happening out there beneath the cold water that ordinary people weren't allowed to see. That ambiguity made those scenes feel very special. 8. The film accidentally gave birth to a sci-fi empire. Originally, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was seen as a standalone film project, a science fiction movie released in theaters, and that's it. But Fox soon realized they had more than that. The submarine sets, the models, the water tanks, all could be reused. From that practical thought, the television series of the same name was born in 1964. It not only extended the life of the film, but also paved the way for many later projects, including Lost in Space and The Time Tunnel. Looking back, this wasn't a grand strategy from the beginning. It was more of a natural reflex of Hollywood at the time, make use of everything that could be used, but that very recycling accidentally created a distinct style for 1960s American sci-fi television. 7. The submarine design was made without asking the Navy a single question. It may sound hard to believe, but the Seaview submarine wasn't designed with any official consultation from the Navy. The designer, Herman Blumenthal, simply gathered images from magazines, general technical books, and his own imagination. He didn't try to make it technically accurate. He wanted it to look alive. Seaview had a long curved shape, more like a sea creature than a machine. It didn't sit still on the surface. It looked like it was swimming. This very thing made many viewers believe they were seeing some kind of secret military technology, something the government wouldn't say, but cinema had accidentally revealed. In reality, the opposite was true. Q was purely a product of imagination created by someone not bound by engineering principles. And sometimes the lack of restriction creates the most convincing illusion. 6. The actor refused the film but became the face of the franchise. You may not know that David Hyson, who later became the iconic Captain Lee Crane in the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea series, once flatly refused the role in the 1961 film version. At the time, Hedison was building a solid career with supporting roles in TV and film. And Irwin Allen's movie script didn't truly impress him. He felt the story was too far-fetched, too risky, and was unsure about the project's future. However, when Fox decided to turn Voyage into a long-running TV series in 1964, Hyson was invited again.